Hi, I'm 23F Number, and I'm about to make a video which I hope you like, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope you learn something too. Excuse me. Alright, now take a note before I say anything. This video is on a topic, proof for God. And this is my opinion on this and how it's taken. If you're a Christian or an atheist, whatever you believe, you can take this as yes or no, it doesn't matter. This is once again my opinion, and it applies to you. Now, how this video has come to be and why I decided to think about it is one, a comment was left on another person's video that was Christian, and they were talking about an entire different subject. What this person said was, "Oh, you're a Christian, LOL, prove God exists, oh wait, you can't, LOL." I decided leaving a comment saying, well, you're wrong on that. Because of just who I am, I'm like, you're wrong on that. The person replied, "Try and prove it," and this is what I said to that person. Which I believe they were trolling because when they replied, they ignored what I said. They never commented on what I said, and just basically said, "Oh, you can't prove for God," and said, "You can't even spell the guy's name right, you immigrant." And I'm not an immigrant. I'm not foreign. So more or less the person was probably trolling, and even when I clicked on their channel, you couldn't see it. So anyway, ignoring all that, I felt that I need to make this video anyway because, to be honest, I've never really made a video on anything about God or Jesus, despite the fact that I'm a Christian. Now, I have made some videos on the subject of what I believe and yada yada yada, but I felt I need to do this. So, here we go. Proof for God. Here's the thing on proof. You have to be willing to accept what I say as proof. If you were to come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to know something about God," I would be like, "Okay, what do you want to know? Well, can you prove God to me?" And I would say this to you. What I'm about to say, maybe I hopefully wouldn't be as hyper as I am, or, because I'm just excited, or ranting as fast. But here's what I tell you. Proof for God. You wish to know proof for God. Well, here you go. I'm going to tell you this straightforward. One, you have to be willing to accept what I say is proof that God exists. If you're not willing to accept what I'm saying for God, it's here for two reasons. One, you're not completely understanding what I'm saying, which I would try to make clear to you, or two, you're not willing to accept proof. You are the only one that can accept proof for God. You're the only one that can accept what anyone says as proof for God. And only you can look for proof for God. As I told the person I commented to you, I can't prove God to you. I can't. You have to prove God to yourself, which means only you can accept God. I can't say God exists, and I can't say this is and this proves him definitively that he exists. You have to be willing, one, to accept that God may exist, to even have any clarability. Two, you have to be willing to look for proof yourself, not just by asking someone to prove God to me. You have to look yourself for God. Give me a drink here. Now, why is it? Because it's like anything else. Kind of like in science. People can say, well, show us proof of this. Well, you can't just sit there and blah 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 about this. They may say and go, well, we think so, but you have to show proof for it. But if you don't have anything for them, But let's say other scientists don't find say this is incredible. Just show us proof. Or yada yada yada. Well, unless you go looking for proof yourself, because what you said, let's just say you saw something, you saw a video saying something as a scientific, something, God, aliens, whatever, I'm just saying, well, you want to believe that. Well, you try proving it to someone else. They're not necessarily going to believe you unless they're willing to look themselves. See? Like anything in the world, you have to go looking for proof yourself, because if you can prove it to yourself, you might be able to prove it to others. I've done this. Now, I have been a Christian, and I did used to state this a lot since 7. And I didn't walk up to people going, "Hey, I've been saved since 7, blah, blah, blah." I would just tell people, if they ever asked, "Yes, I've been saved since I've been 7. I feel that that isn't adequate of saying that, because it makes me feel like, oh, I've been a Christian since 7. I'm better than you. And it may come off like that, and I hope it doesn't. But as a Christian, I've grown in looking. I have looked for proof for God, never doubting that God exists, but just looking for stuff that I can see with my eyes, showing God's greatness in our world. I looked at myself first. When I was a kid, I used to be incredibly amazed that I can talk in my head to myself. That's thinking. I was impressed by that, and I was very little, obviously, but it was still impressive to me. And I wondered if animals could do this. I don't think they can, because I assume that they don't think like that. They don't make conscious decisions. as far as I know. I think animals might have some way of thinking, but, once again, I was amazed that I could think in my own head and no one could hear me. Which led me to go, I like bananas! It made me think, I wonder if they can hear what I'm thinking, and stare at people like, which was kind of odd. But anyway, back to what I'm saying. Proof for God. Only you can prove that God exists to yourself, because no matter else what no one else says to you, you have to accept that. But unless you're willing to accept proof to yourself, well, that goes back to anything, right? Right. Unless you're willing to accept it. Now, unless it's obvious things. Now, the sun is round, right? Okay, we accept the moon is there. We accept that because we can see it. But things we can't see. Spiritually, that's also another reason why I think people don't accept proof for God, is that they don't look at the spiritual side of God. I know the spiritual stuff. I've done very many walks on the spiritual side. Because having a relationship with God is spiritual and physical. Because it's physical, we are physical beings, so therefore we have physical stuff that we see that God created, like us. But there's also the spiritual stuff, like our soul. We can't see our soul, right? Right. But going back to what I'm saying, a proof for God. Only you, the person, can be willing to start a walk with God. No one else can start a walk for God for you. They can help lead you to Christ and help you get started on a path with God, on the walk with God. Like for me, I got saved when I was little, thanks to a sermon my pastor at the school was talking about when Jesus died on the cross. It made me want to accept Christ in my heart. But I like saying Christ in your life more than your heart, because of what another preacher later on in my adult life, I'm 20 years old, of saying about Jesus in your life. Not just in your heart, but accepting him in your life and asking him for redemption. That's how you start walking with God. Unless you're willing to do that, then any proof you see for God, you will not accept, because you're not willing to accept a relationship with God. That is proof of God exists, is one, starting a walk with him. That is going to show you proof that God exists. And also, if you take a step back and look around, you will find proof God exists. Our brain, for instance. Scientists still aren't really sure on everything how the brain does stuff. I think that is proof for God. Now, you can say, well, not necessarily, and that's okay. Because you can, if you are like a scientist or something, or even an atheist, and you look at stuff very scientifically, and you go, that's not necessarily proof for God. It's just because we don't know. We don't know. Which is fine. That's not being stupidity, that's ignorance. We just don't know how our brain really works. But we can, one day we'll probably figure out how our brain works, because, once again, that will be proof of design. Because I think stuff has to be designed a certain way for it to even work. And I hope this video is making sense to you, and if it doesn't, please leave comments and I will discuss everything. But anyway, back to proof to God. Only you can accept proof God exists. As I left a comment in replying to that person, only you have to start looking for proof yourself. No one else can tell you proof for something. If you're looking for results, find them yourself. Look for them. It's like anything. If you, let's say you want to fish, you have to get worms, you have to get bait, and you have to make sure that there's fish in the pond. If you just throw out, you don't catch fish, you're like, well, I wonder if there's any big fish in this pond or lake. And you get out on the boat and you start looking and you use a sonar. You see a blip and you're like, is that a fish? That's proof that maybe there's fish in here, right? I mean, that makes sense. You can't obviously see the fish at first, and if you don't see anything, except maybe tiny minnows, was there anything feasting on the minnows in this pond? Or lake, or whatever. If you don't see any life, then maybe there's no fish there. Saying. But you have to look yourself for evidence for God. But you also have to be willing to accept the proof that you see for God. This is one thing I think about atheists, and this is once again my opinion, and I do respect atheists for what they believe, and I know a few atheists, and I respect them for what they believe, and I don't argue with them about this. And I've never really had a debate with an atheist on this subject, but I will say this. An atheist may not be willing to accept that there is a God because of lack of proof for God. But I feel that maybe some atheists, and I do say some, aren't willing to accept any proof for God because they say, well, there's this, this, and this, which is trying to contradict God because they look at the stuff differently. They're not willing to accept God, period, because they're saying there's no proof for him. But maybe they're not willing to look for proof themselves. They want Christians and everyone else to prove God exists to them. But that's where you're wrong. You have to be willing to look for God yourself. Some people get saved on their own. Maybe people live on their own. They've never been raised around, and they go on their life. And then one day, they experience something happens to them, something changes in their life, and they don't understand it. And maybe that is God. That's what they think. Maybe that's God. Maybe what I knew as a kid about going to church, and I've never done it in years. I never really believed in Jesus because of the stuff that's happened. Well, something different is happening. What happened? I don't understand. And then you seek God. And then you find God, and that is proof that God exists. If you walk with God, you will find defining proof that God exists. But unless you're willing to do that, unless you're willing to start a walk with God, I lost my train of thought there. A true walk with God. Truthfully, you're not having any doubts about it. You're like, well, I'm just going to test and see if God's there. Don't test God. Walk with Him as a friend, as a father. He's there to guide you along your way. And basically, yes, you are serving God, but it's also helping your life. You're getting a lot of that too. Your life will be better. Now, I will say this. It isn't going to be pure rainbows and sunshine. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult because of the world we live in. God doesn't make life hard for you. The world that you live in does, because it's full of sin. And including another thing about proof, unless you're willing to accept that there's sin in the world, that does not, then you can't say there is God, because if you're willing to accept sins in the world, well, the Bible talks about sin, so surely maybe there's God, who died so sin wouldn't completely consume us and destroy us. You have to be willing to accept proof for God. And the only way to do that is be willing yourself. No one else can prove it to you. You have to prove it to yourself. And that's the way I feel about proof for God. As a Christian, I've been growing in my walk with God ever since I was little. I've grown in understanding God. I've grown in understanding a lot of things that I didn't understand when I was little, because I've matured. I grew up. I'm still a Christian, and I have stumbled on my path with God. I've never doubted God existed. I've never doubted that, no. But there's some things I've struggled in my life to understand or comprehend, and I've sought God, and God has helped me. He said, hey, here you go. Here's the understanding that you're asking. Let me help you. And there are times, like even recently, I've been struggling with some stuff, but God's there. And that's why I know He exists, because I prove that I'm trying to do a better life. And God is helping me live that life. Maybe by finding a person. I found a friend that can help you because he leads us to people. You ever wonder why maybe you meet certain people and they make a difference in your life? Because that's God leading you to them. I don't believe in 100% random chances. I don't believe that you meet a person just completely randomly. Or maybe that one thing that you get on a plane or an airport, you can talk to a person about peanuts for the entire flight. That may be slightly random, but you still had a conversation about peanuts. But if you meet a person after that at a restaurant or something, and whatever, and you're seeing them, and maybe you're just having a hard day, and the waitress walks over and gives you a cup of coffee and goes, hey, it's on the house. And then, for whatever reason, they sit down and talk to you. And maybe that helps you feel better, and whatever's going on in your life. Was that a random chance? It wasn't about peanuts the entire time. It was about stuff. About their life and your life. And mostly your life, because they were willing to listen to you. And talking to them helped make your day better. That could be God acting in your life. And like I sing sometimes, if it rains, was that God? Possibly. Or it just rained. I think that there are some stuff that are set in motion that happen more or less for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Why is there an earthquake? Because the earth is shifting, the plates. We know this stuff. And in the end, yes, God is in control. There have been some earthquakes lately where no one's gotten hurt. No one died. Or at least no one died. People may have gotten hurt, but no one died. And tornadoes too. Tornadoes, that's what I was thinking. Not earthquakes, sorry. Maybe some earthquakes too, but tornadoes recently have been through here, but no one died. People did get hurt, but no one died. And sure, maybe they got hurt, but no one died. It wasn't their injuries were not serious. They're like, hey, I only had a few scratches. It's a miracle. And miracles are not always proof for God, because miracles in the end don't prove anything. They don't. That's why we live by faith. If we live by seeing miracles all the time, then it wouldn't really prove. We would only be there for the miracles, not for the spiritual side of walking with God and bettering our lives. And understanding God and wanting to know our Creator, our spiritual Father. I mean, that's why we call Him our Father, because He is our spiritual Father. He's our Creator. I mean, I've wanted to have a walk with Him, and I've been doing so. But it goes back to, let's say, when I was a kid. Let's say I didn't get saved when I was a kid, and I was 22, like I am now 22 years old, and I was wondering about God. I could ask everyone else to explain it to me, and that might help me want to seek proof for God. But in the end, it's still up to me, like it is up to you, to look for God yourself, because only you can accept God. No one else can accept God and say, yep, you accept God, because you have to. So, if you ever want to ask for proof that God exists, look yourself, and be willing to look for God yourself. Look for the signs, and not just the physical, but look for the spiritual, because those are two things you need to look for. Spiritual and physical, because they both go together. And there is evidence out there that God exists, but you are the one that has to accept it and believe it. You have to be the one to start a relationship with God. Otherwise, everything I just said is meaningless. Unless you can go to church every day of your life and have a preacher preach to you every Sunday and Wednesday too. Wednesday nights sometimes. And on Easter and on Christmas. Or maybe the day before Christmas rather. But either way, it all goes back to you. You can either accept what the preacher says, you can either accept what someone else may tell you, or you look yourself. You look for yourself, and you find the proof you're looking for because you're willing to start a relationship with God. You're willing to accept Him in your life, and you realize there may be hard times. There may be times when maybe you get mad at God sometimes. I've got someone angry at God, and I'm like, I'm sorry I got mad at you, Lord, but this stuff happening to me. I don't understand. Why is this happening? I don't understand it, and God will help you sort it out. We're human. We don't always understand everything. We never will completely understand everything in our lives. Because if we knew everything, then what's the point of learning? Walking with God is learning something every day, spiritually. And maybe even physically too. You see something, you're like, dang, man, God, that's pretty impressive right there. I mean, those are the two things. You can't have one without the other. And it's all about proof. So if you want to prove God exists, if you want to ask someone if God exists, ask yourself, does God exist? Maybe I should go look for proof myself, because I'm the one that wants to know. No one else is going to be able to prove God exists to me, or say, yes, here's proof for God, you accept now. Because it's just like leading someone to Christ. You lead them to Christ. You can help them. And people can maybe help you understand some stuff. And I'm not saying that no one else can show you proof. But you have to be willing to accept that as proof. And like I said, you're the only one that can start a relationship with God. No one can start it for you. They can help you lead you to God. Lead up to that point. And that's all. We can't force you into a relationship with God. No one can force you to believe anything. You have to start. You're the one that has to choose. You're the one that chooses to have faith, hope, that God is there, and that what you're believing is correct, it's true. What everyone else believes, generally, that there's God, and I believe. That's why I have faith. And I even have faith in you, that you'll be able to understand my rambling a little bit, and maybe walk away with something new. And maybe you can take a step back and think, maybe I've been looking for everyone else to show me God, but I've never really looked myself, And I hope this video does help. And, I mean, like I said, if you haven't completely understood what I've said, that's fine. Just message me or even leave a comment. I'm here to help you understand some things. I don't know everything, and I may not know all the answers. I certainly don't know them all. But I can at least help you, because it's like any Christian. We can help you lead you to Christ and even understand some things. But it's always best to add things, to ask Christ yourself and walk with Him. Because you can't walk with me and hope that Christ will teach you everything. You have to have your own personal relationship with God, because it's personal. There There ain't going through someone else to get to God. There's you and God. That's it. There's nothing else. You can't go through someone else. You can't go through me to get to God. You can't go through your old neighbor Elric to get to God. You have to be willing to start proof. A relationship with God. And like I said about proof, you're the one that will have to look yourself. If you want proof, go and look for it. You can't ask everyone else to prove God or anything else really in this world to you. You have to look yourself. You have to be somewhat of the detective and look for proof and be willing to accept proof. Maybe not everything, because you have to be kind of judgmental about it. Don't be ignorant and don't be willing to believe everything that people tell you, because people can mislead you. Sometimes you can mislead yourself, and that's true. I mean, sometimes you can mislead yourself into thinking something else. But once again, having a relationship with God, God will make it clear to you. He'll help you understand stuff. He will, trust me. He helped me understand some stuff. I'm like, you know, I thought about something the wrong way. I was like, wait, I don't think this is right. God, is this true? And it's like, yeah, no, not true, but here's what, let me help you understand it. And then I grew to understand what I was trying to understand, and I understood it better. So, if you want proof for God, you're the only one that can accept it as truth, as proof. As truth and proof. But, if you want proof for God, you're the one that's got to start. And people can help you along the way. Yes, people can help you maybe look for proof, but you have to be willing to look yourself. You have to be willing to accept it. You can't have doubts that, well, I'm looking for proof for God, but I have a doubt that He's there. I have a doubt that He exists, because if you have doubt, you're not going to be able to completely accept that whatever you may find is legitimate proof for God. Because let's say you're not willing to believe in the soul, you're not willing to believe in that. Well, if you can't accept that, then you can't accept God, because God is spiritual. He's just as spiritual as He is physical. Because He created our world, that's physical. He created us, we're physical. The two go together. So I'm sorry if I repeated myself, but I felt I needed to make this video even after I commented, and even just thinking about it. I, ranted myself just talking what I'd say in this video, and I have added some stuff that has just come to me, but in the end, you are the only one able to accept proof, and you're the only one to look for it. Some people you can't just be handed proof and be expected to accept it. You can't have any doubt. You have to be willing to believe. You're willing to have faith. I mean, you have to have some faith. Like you have a faith in a friend to come pick you up for work or something. I mean, you're like, hey, I trust you. I have faith that you'll come and pick me up to go to work together. And if your friend doesn't do that, then you're like, oh, dude, what happened? I mean, yes, people can mess up, but God doesn't abandon you. If you want God to drive you to work, He's going to drive you to work every single day. He doesn't get sick. You may get sick, and He's like, hey, you ready for work? I'm sorry, I'm sick. Well, I'll wait till you get better, That was probably a horrible example, but I hope all of you have been able to at least understand what I'm saying, and I'm not the best person to, explain stuff about God, but I do try, and I think I have maybe helped some people understand, a walk with God, because I can only tell you my walk with God, but it won't be as good as you having your own walk with God. So, yeah, I hope if this has helped, and I'm 22 ref number, but you can also call me Harlan. So, this is Harlan signing out, and I hope you learned something from my video, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and hope it isn't too long, but if you've stuck around to the end, like I said, if you want to leave any comments or any messages about maybe some stuff that are like, you said this a couple times, I wasn't really clear, feel free to message me, and I will do my best to help you clear anything up. And like I said, this is once again my opinion, and I do hope it's correct. I do hope in general this is true and correct, because like I said, this is also just my own thoughts. I didn't ask someone else for it, and you know, I did ask God about it. I was like, hey, Lord, help me, you know, I said pray before this, like, Lord, please help me say what, you know, I can say is true and be correct and not mess up, and I haven't made too many mistakes. So anyway, you guys take care. God bless you guys, and have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time for the next one. So, see you guys later.